Look at me. Look at this. It looks like the resolution of the camera is kind of crappy as I get closer to it. I don't know. And I don't know what that stuff is. Why the. Why there is a odd tint, especially on the cherry of the cigarette. That it appears to be only nighttime, or whatever. But in the last episode, I just watched a West Wing. There was a State of the Union address, and during a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it, there was a part about how they were removing a section of the address where he was talking about um, curing cancer, how they were going to make a pledge or whatever you want to phrase it as to cure cancer over the next decade. Much like when President Kennedy announced the goal to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. And I think that kind of thing would be nice to hear from uh, leadership these days. Uh, Announcements of grand projects or you know grand visions of things to come. Um, I think the last great project that we undertook was like the Human Genome Project or something like that. We also had the International Space Station. We did that. Some might say was the Iraq War. Would that be Iraq 1 or I guess that'd be Iraq 2? Yeah, the thing that happened after 9/11. Even though it was wrong, you know, it was like retaliation for 9/11. It was under false pretenses and stuff. It was like they had weapons of mass destruction and stuff. We just did it because whatever. Wasn't it like the Saudi government that funded that whole thing? I don't know. I would think uh, an interesting thing to fund would be a new, not transcontinental railroad, but transportation network. Uh, Fast transportation system, like fast rail system. Like I said before in many videos, one of the major drawbacks to something like that is that, personally, I would want it to be free to end user, and if its fares are free, that might help to put the airline industry kind of out of business, and that might be, you know, then you have to, then basically you're going to be fighting the airline industry lobbyists on that thing the whole way. But there are ways around that, because soon we're going to have electrified aircraft. So, we're going to have electric aircraft, and we're going to have aircraft that are supersonic for super rich people. The super rich people are going to be flying in supersonic aircraft that only they can afford. And the electric aircraft are going to be slower. But they're going to be running on electricity. And, if anybody's interested in that, they can look at it. And maybe at some time in the next 20 to 50 years, we can build a rail system underneath the Pacific and Atlantic Ocean. Just totally underneath both oceans. I mean, through the bedrock of the oceans. But I don't know. That would be a long trade ride. That would be something that would be I wouldn't want to do unless I'd be taking a vac train. So, because even if the train is going at something like 1,000 or 1,500 kilometers or miles per hour, that would still take what, 2-3 hours more to get from one side of the earth to another. Maybe less actually, because you wouldn't be going in a line and be going through. So I don't know. You'd have to talk to probably geologists and all sorts of different people to actually figure out the actual uh, distance you would be traveling. But if you did it that way, uh, depending upon the time you would depart, I think depending upon the time you departed, the trip would be, I don't know, it might be shorter because forces in the earth would be different because of the rotation of the earth or some shit. Because the earth is rotating and stuff because you're underneath the earth. I don't know. You have to talk to physicists, and making that tunnel would be an, a ridiculous challenge. On top of that, the simple the simple ability to make something like that would be impressive. Just to make a tunnel from somewhere in Los Angeles to somewhere in like Beijing. That would be very cool, to say the least. But like I said, something like that, an engineering effort on that kind of scale is probably at least 25 to 50 years off. But that would be impressive, doing something like that. Then you wouldn't need airplanes. I don't know. The first one would probably be from Los Angeles to somewhere in Japan, though, to be blunt. Before China. Simply because we have better relations with Japan than we do with China. But I don't know exactly where I started with this, other than to say this is another one of those Americans like to hear politicians talk about I'm gonna bring more jobs. I'm gonna help more jobs, and lots of times jobs are, at least in America, jobs come from the private sector. Actually, they like jobs to come from the private sector. No one really gives a shit where they get their money from. At the end of the day, as long as they have some money to pay for all the crap they have. If one day you're broke, have no money, and need money to pay rent and everything, and then the next day you have a job doing something that pays for all the stuff, I'm pretty sure you'll be okay with, yes, now I have a job. You might still vote Republican and small government and all that garbage, but even if the job is government sector and in your mind mostly useless, you'll still be happy you have a job and you have an income and you have the ability to pay your rent and your car lease and all that shit. But you'll feel a lot better that you have the ability to feed and house yourself. So, the ever-present American hypocrite. Hold on, I gotta pee. Well, that was something special. That's 9:52, and yeah, I don't know what else to say. I guess that's it. Because I can't really remember much ado about that. Tax rich, you get rich.